This week, House Democrats will again deliver the votes to prevent a government shutdown. If there's one thing consistent within the 118th Congress, it's that Democrats are the only adults in the chamber. And because of the leadership of Ranking Member DeLauro, Leader Jeffries, and the leadership team, these funding bills protect so many key priorities that are important to our caucus and are free of partisan amendments and riders that restrict abortion access. But it didn't have to be like this. The months of crisis, chaos, and confusion are a direct result and a wholesale takeover of the Republican Party by Donald Trump and MAGA extremists. That's not just an observation. Those are his words. On Saturday, he said that the Republican Party now must be, quote, 100% MAGA. What that means in practice is more chaos, more crisis, and more confusion. It means that the needs of everyday Americans, like lowering the costs of everyday goods and services, addressing gun violence, and growing the middle class, remain on the back burner. The contrast could not be more clear. We are Team Normal. House Democrats are Team Normal, and we want to fund important government priorities that raise the quality of life for every American and protect the freedoms that the American people rely on. House Republicans and Donald Trump are Team Extreme. They lurch from crisis to crisis because the only unifying principles motivating them are the whims and grievances of a man who has 91 felonies behind his name. Next, Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. I'm going to talk about two issues today. The first is in vitro fertilization, IVF. 125 members of the Republican Party signed the Life at Conception bill that would ban IVF. Now, some of them have now come on and said, no, it really doesn't ban IVF. That's a lie. How do we know that? Because the Alabama Supreme Court used basically the same language, and IVF clinics across Alabama started shutting down. And here's a reason why. When you define life to start at fertilization, that essentially means every embryo is a child. The way IVF works, as part of the process, a number of embryos get discarded. That means all these IVF clinics are going to be guilty of murder. And that's why they had to shut down, because they can't do this process anymore. It simply would subject them to massive liability just as part of a normal IVF process. Now, there may be some Republican members that didn't exactly know how IVF worked and signed onto that Life and Conception bill, but there were Republican members who either got pregnant because of IVF, had a spouse who went through IVF, or had family members who went through IVF, knew exactly what this process was, and they signed onto that bill, and they are shameful hypocrites. They knew exactly what they were doing. That bill bans IVF. But it gets worse than that. We looked through, the pro-choice caucus looked through all the legislation, and they saw that that same definition was used in a variety of other bills that Republicans signed on to. 184 Republicans have signed on to bills defining life at fertilization, all of which would ban IVF if that became law. And just to put a final point on this, for approximately the first 38 hours, no, actually, for approximately the first 30 hours after fertilization, the zygote is a single cell. Now, you have the right in America to believe that that single cell is a human child, but you don't have the right to jam that particular relief down the throats of Americans and ban IVF. And that is what is at stake right now. Second issue I want to talk about is Ukraine. Speaker Johnson has said repeatedly he wants the House to work its will. The only way the House works its will is through votes. All he has to do is put the national security supplemental that the Senate passed on a bipartisan basis on the House floor and take an up or down vote. And having served in the U.S. military and then having served in the reserves, it's very clear that this national security supplemental is critical to U.S. national security. And now it's my honor to introduce the ranking member, past chair, and future chair of Appropriations, the amazing Rosa DeLauro.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ted. Thank you. And good morning to everyone as well. I am so delighted, and I want to say a thank you to Congressman Aguilar, Congressman Lieu, and all of the House Democratic leadership for what has been over the last several months, steady leadership, a united front throughout what we have experienced with the 2024 government funding saga. Later this afternoon, House Democrats will continue to lead by putting up the votes needed to keep the government open, to fund the programs that help Americans with the cost of living, creating higher paying jobs, battling climate change, honoring America's veterans, and protecting women's rights. This was undoubtedly, as I think you all know, an unprecedented year and an unprecedented process which got us here. The extreme House Republican majority repeatedly reneged on their word. They failed to even consider several of their harmful bills in committee or on the floor. But despite the chaos in the majority, Democrats did what we always do. We did put people over politics. We followed the law. We reached a bipartisan compromise to grow the middle class and to deliver for the American people. You know, the bill certainly doesn't have everything that we may have wanted. But I am very proud to say we successfully defeated the vast majority of the extreme cuts and hundreds of harmful policy riders proposed by the House Republicans. We rejected their attempts to defund critical agencies and programs, and we rejected their culture war riders. We rejected their attacks on women's freedom. We protected access to reproductive health care. We ensured that WIC and SNAP nutrition assistance are fully funded so that no family in need is put on a wait list and no child goes hungry. The bill will help us combat climate change. It will create good paying jobs and sustain those jobs in communities across this country, jobs that are in manufacturing, in infrastructure, jobs in green energy. So I am so proud of how hard House Democrats fought to secure these wins for the American people. It's not just a process. It is what's contained in the appropriations bill, the services to be delivered every single year. We're going to continue to fight for the next 6 bills, which, as you know, are due on March 22nd. We will continue to fight to grow the middle class, to protect Americans' freedoms, and we will protect women's rights, and we are going to deliver for hardworking people in 2025. Thank you, and I yield back to my colleague, the chair of the caucus.
Thank you so much. Questions? Nicole?
Mr. Chair, obviously tomorrow, the day State of the Union. What does I know the White House and the campaign Biden kind of see this as a reset moment to a certain extent, but what do you think the president needs to do tomorrow night, specifically around his messaging? Because this also comes during the same week that we're seeing polls that continue to show him trailing the president, and that specifically in terms of the economy, that people don't seem to be feeling the impact of his policies. That they, I mean, our own poll, CBS News poll, shows that people viewed the former president's term more favorably in terms of the economy. So, bottom line, like, what does he need to do tomorrow night?
I think what the president, will do, I don't think there's any reset that's needed. I think what the president will do is tout the work that we have done together to lower the costs that everyday Americans face, as well as the record that he has achieved in job creation and the economy. I think that will be the focus of the speech, as well as what Vice Chair Liu mentioned, the importance of the national security priorities in front of us, the importance of the House working its will and funding urgent national security priorities for Israel, Ukraine, humanitarian assistance, and Indo-Pacific PACOM priorities. That's what the president will do. But specific on the domestic front, there are achievements that he has discussed, that we will continue to discuss, as well as the agenda moving forward. And I think that vision and that focus on the domestic side is something that we will hear and we will see discussed as well. I'll yield to the vice chair.
Thank you. I agree with everything Chairman Aguilar said. I also want to note that 2 national polls show Biden leading Trump. I would wish you all would report on that as well. And if you look at yesterday's primary results on Super Tuesday, Joe Biden did much better in the primary as a percentage against his opponents than Donald Trump did against his opponent. Joe Biden has clearly unified the Democratic Party. There's still a lot of fracturing in the Republican Party, and would love if you all report on that as well.
I guess just a follow-up
Yeah.
on that, though. I mean, for instance,
If I can take a second, and I just would add to what my colleagues have said, because it is endemic in the DNA of President Biden. His own experience leads him to understand that what people are facing today is a high cost of living, that people are living paycheck to paycheck, that it's just not a soundbite, and that they're having trouble purchasing food, that they're having trouble health care, whatever it is, child care. He gets that. And underlying what he has done, which has been to try to address those issues, that he will, I believe that will be part of what he does, is to recognize the economic crisis and the insecurity that people are feeling today, many of whom have wages have not gone up in decades. And that's why he has worked as hard as he has to deal with the public policy initiatives that he has initiated and gotten passed. It's not just for a process, it is as an understanding of walking in people's shoes and what they need to have, and how he is trying to be able to get them what they need for their economic future.
Max?
Question on the appropriations process. I know a lot of Democrats, most prominently Chris Murphy, came out today and said he's going to vote no against this bill because of the VA gun policy rider. Here's your thoughts on that provision and what was shared during the caucus this morning about misgivings.
The ranking member DeLauro presented, as well as every ranking member within the 6 bills presented. We talked about that provision. My expectation is that House Democrats are going to do what we have done in the past, and that is to put up the votes to fund government. We have seen that time and time again. Does that mean that we support this provision? No, and we will work in future appropriations process to ensure that gun violence prevention and tools to root out, tools to support gun safety are included in these bills. But we will be supporting this bill in front of us today.
Yeah, I would just say I find it interesting. Look, bad policy, not for it. However, the Senate, people go back and take a look at the Senate, both supported the Kennedy Amendment and the underlying bill. There was a strong bipartisan vote on that bill as it came over to the House. In the House, most Democrats voted against the Bost Amendment, and most voted against the final bill in the military construction bill. You're in a negotiation. We rid this bill of countless gun riders, abortion riders, culture war riders, and we were faced very reluctantly, because our Republican colleagues insisted on it, having that strong bipartisan vote coming out of the United States Senate, to accept it. What is our determination? Our determination is that we will work to be able to get rid of that rider, because it is bad policy, and above all, it puts this nation's veterans at risk. But we will pass these bills today because there is a commitment to move forward and a strong commitment to overturn what happened as a result of Senate action, not House members, but Senate action in that rider.
Questions? Paul?
In House races last night, where did you see your party coming out versus in the primaries in terms of what happened on their side? What's your handicap?
Yeah, I'm happy. Happy Super Tuesday. Today we're looking over those results, and in California, for those of you who have spent some time with us, you know that takes a little while to get the final results. But based on what we're seeing, and I'll yield to the vice chair too, because he's been active in these races. Uh, Democrats are in a very good position to reclaim the House, and California will play a significant role in that. We are pleased with the candidates that advanced. We're pleased that Democrats have candidates in these, key races. We look forward to the months ahead. Obviously, when we're here, we're legislating, but there will be a time and a place to do the politics, and we're happy with the outcomes.
Thank you. In every single district in California, we've got a strong Democratic candidate for the general election. We're very pleased with that. And I also want to congratulate Adam Schiff, who will be the next senator in California.
Nick?
Also on the topic of Super Tuesday down ballot, what is your reaction to Mr. Schiff's win last night in the primaries? Boosting Steve Garvey, was that worth it?
Well, look, there's a Democrat, on the ballot. There's a Republican on the ballot, and as the vice chair said, we congratulate Representative Schiff on his win last night, and we look forward to serving with him in his future capacity as a senator. We're endorsers and supporters. We didn't hide that, and pleased with the numbers that he put up. Obviously, with deep, respect and admiration to the other members who advanced their names as well. Representatives Porter and Lee are both, powerhouses within the caucus, but Adam Schiff was successful.
Yesterday in California, also, Super Tuesday, there was low voter turnout. Do you have any concerns, to you also being from California come November, especially now with Haley dropping out? It seemed like it's going to be a Biden-Trump rematch, and voters are unenthusiastic about that kind of ballot. Do you have any concerns of voter turnout in November with that?
With Donald Trump at the top of the ticket, Republicans at the top of the ticket in California are going to squirm because, independent, voices in California detest Donald Trump's policies. That is overwhelmingly going to be the driving force when it comes to turnout in California. This is not unlike 2012 when Democrats in the Democratic primary, when the president of our party was seeking re-election, turnout in the primary was incredibly low, and then picked back up in November. That is always expected from the primary to the general in California. More so when there isn't much on the ballot driving the top of the ticket in way of contested races. And so this was expected. We knew this was going to be low. The data that we track knew this was going to be low. My expectation is that the state of California is going to make its voice heard on November 5th, denouncing Donald Trump and his policies and those people who support those policies. Eric?
Can you update us on the second minibus? Is that going to be much tougher to do, or are we on track on that?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. If I might just take 1 second, I know, in the past, in the last couple of years, the average non-defense increase was in the neighborhood of about 8%. This year, it's flat. And then there are must-pay bills, like we were very successful with the WIC effort. We needed to deal with cuts elsewhere. But where the cuts are, and I'm so really excited about the bills that we're going to deal with today, because they're nowhere near the 22% cuts that the House Republicans had threatened. And you should know that overall, within the 12 bills, there are 560 riders. In this set of 6, there are 262. We rid ourselves of 98% of those riders. Let's talk about the 6 bills coming up. We are on target and on track to meet that deadline of March 22nd. The bills are in various stages of progress, etc. So I'm, optimistic that we are going to, like we met this deadline with the 6, prior to the deadline, that we are going to do the same with the following six bills. We are not going to be shutting government down. Government is going to be staying open as it should be.
You heard it from Russ and Delora. Questions? Second row. Why does she get all the love?
So the social programs do separate cuts. For example, housing provisions that funds housing, affordable rental, and other
Yeah.
housing. Republicans say it goes back to that 2019 level.
Yeah, well, look, if you take a look at what we did was to make available housing for 5 million people, low-income families. Negotiations are, a compromise. You win some and you do. We have so many. I just say in the housing area, it was really. And you have the summaries. We told you what we have. We stabilized, we protected housing assistance, nearly 5 million low-income individuals and families. They continue to remain in safe, stable, and affordable housing. You couldn't increase everything. What I suggested to my colleagues all along in this process, given the environment in which we were negotiating and coming forward with 22% in cuts, if we had, level funding, that was a win. We prevented the most drastic and outrageous cuts in some of these bills. And quite frankly, you will recall that the ag bill failed on the floor of the House with Democrats and Republicans. And there were 4 additional bills that never saw the light of day because of the cuts. That has been reversed. So we didn't get everything that we wanted, but we got most of it. Thank you.
On the IVF issue.
Oh, gosh, go ahead.
On IVF, clearly I think it is very fair to bring up past statements that Republicans have made and past bills that they've introduced. But since the decision in Alabama has come down, we've seen an overwhelming amount of Republicans coming out in support of IVF and also criticizing the Supreme Court decision there. Do you see that as a victory that Republicans are so vocal about this? And can that be a possibility for a bipartisan solution?
Republicans beat back a solution in the Senate. They didn't allow Tammy Duckworth to offer her bill. I view it more as a realization that Republicans have looked in the mirror and they understand what is in front of them. And they are very mindful of the political calendar as well. They know women and families around this country support IVF and access to abortion care. That's just the reality. And they have been couched and coached into say the right things. But ultimately, what's important is what they put their names on. When we're here, when we're legislating, what you sign, what you support, speaks for your values and your district. And that's what Republicans have chosen to do. As the vice chair said, over 180 Republicans who have lent their name to that same language. But this is a realization of what's ahead for them in the eyes of the public. Nothing more than that.
Actions speak louder than words. So Republicans who sign on to life and conception bill and say they support IVF are lying. They know full well that you cannot define life and conception and have IVF clinics. That's why they're all shutting down in Alabama, because that language shuts down IVF. If Republicans want to do something about it, they can all take their names off the life and conception bill and they can introduce their own bill protecting IVF. They refuse to do that. So they go on TV and in the media and they lie to you and to the American public, and they're shameful hypocrites.
Just lastly, for the record, both Vice Chair Liu and I have the same glasses that Rosa DeLauro has, and she wears them so much better, for the record. Thank you so much.
Thank you.